All right, today's date is Saturday, May 31st, 2025. My name is Sarah Boye, and I'm interviewing Alzo Reddick as part of research with the University of Central Florida's Riches Project in cooperation with the City of Orlando's Parramore Speaks project. This interview is being conducted at the Grand Avenue Neighborhood Center in Orlando, Florida, and Mr. Reddick, Dr. Reddick, has agreed to allow this interview to be recorded. Dr. Reddick, could you start us off by telling me your full name?
Alzo J. Reddick, Sr.
Okay, so we can summarize this and go in depth as much as you'd like, but can you tell me about your childhood and where you grew up?
I grew up approximately 6 blocks north of Grand Avenue at the intersection of Parramore and Jackson Street, which is 1 block south of the soccer stadium, so we'll know exactly which was the former location of the Carver Theater. I moved to Orlando from Bartow in 1944 as a first grader, and I'd like to begin talking about my experience at Holden Street School, which is now the location of the Orlando Police Station. First of all, you can see my skin is brown, and I was a small guy. We knew no one in Orlando, and my blessing and curse was that I could read. So as a first grader, I could read because my grandfather, I don't know how I knew how to read, but in first grade from Polk County, I could read. So the teachers discovered that I could read in the first grade, and in the second grade, in Miss Johnson's class, who's obviously deceased, she had 35 or 40 black kids. There was no enrollment cap, and many of them could not read. And so my first experience as a black male in organized society at Holden Street School that I mentioned to you, because I could read, I was small, I was scared, I knew no one. There were those big, darker skinned fellas, and they said, Alzo Reddick, I'm gonna beat your butt. You said something about, I never said anything about their mother. I'm telling you that because today, the students that were in the back of the classroom could not read were the victims of not having the parents and the grandparents that I had. Although I'm the first in my family since 1847, which I traced my family, 1847, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my grandmother was born in 1855. That is the beginning of the Reddick history, and we know as much about that family. The marriages have been intact from 1847 to 1855, their dates of birth of my great-grandparents. And so I tell this story. I could read, and I was intimidated and beaten up because even in 1945, in the second grade, the fact that this little guy, and when I tell you that I was timid, I was scared, I knew no one. And I would also go forward, I didn't bring my football picture, but I was the class president in the junior class, and I played football. And I share this story, and I'm rushing through it fast to tell people the night school doctorate that I earned, I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. But the teachers, the black teachers that were not paid as much as Miss Johnson, we received handicap books, second-hand books, and our teachers were not paid, and many of the teachers lost their job. So the fast story that I'm trying to give you a Cliff Note version is that from my literally birth, the white folks were against it, society was against it, and even other black kids, they were against me. They didn't know any better. They're gonna beat up the little black kid, and when I say I was small, and when puberty hit and I discovered girls and football, there was a change. And so I tell that story to say that I was fortunate. The teachers that told me that I was gonna be someone, I was a Cub Scout, I was a Boy Scout, I made model airplanes. There's a parallel society in white society and black society. So when I tell you that I made model airplanes, when I tell you I was a Cub Scout, I was a Boy Scout, I was president of the NAACP in 1954 at Jones High School. Why class president? And so for me, the teachers, the people that gave me jobs, I worked at Dove Street Country Club, I worked at Orlando Country Club. During high school, I worked at Dove Street Country Club, and so if people ask me, Salmon Slammy Sneed, the golfer. I saw Salmon Slammy. I saw Don Bicklenhoff. I saw Babe Zaharias. Why did I see those golfers? Because I was washing dishes at the Dove Street Country Club. It's the first time that I ever earned $100 in a week. In 1953, I played hooky for a whole week. So today, when I talk to people, I mentioned to you that I have a night school doctorate. I went to summer school. I did all sorts of things. If you were to ask me today, the value of my education, invaluable. Is it as adequate as I like for it to be? My grandchildren, most of them doing pretty well, I want them to be as scholarly as they can be. But I'm a competitive fellow. I told you I was a class president. I told you I played football. And my wife isn't here, so I also tell you I had great admiration for the female of the species, and I wanted them to pay a lot of attention to me. And so a part of my life is to play football, to be the class president, and to be as competitive, because if you didn't dress well, if you didn't practice good hygiene, all of things that make you a competitive male, and so balancing those things. So in retrospect, the stories that I tell about the young men that I played football with and against, and the young men that I coached as a coach in the Orange County school system, when I tell stories about the black cowboys, I never saw any pictures of any black. I never saw anything in a history book that I can remember about black soldiers. It's only after attending college and going to the Army that I found out that we were 20% of the black folk. So whether you need someone to dig an outdoor toilet so that your men don't end up with diarrhea and death, in terms of sanitation, black men did a lot of the heavy lifting and the heavy fighting. So for me, at this ripe old age, why even on weaker legs, when people want to interview and want to hear what I have to say, I want to tell them what our contributions were. And I want to say it as strongly as I can, I detest Governor DeSantis, President Trump, and anyone else that would deny the contribution the black folk made. And I'm including the 4-star general, the female general that they fired from the Department of Navy. I have a son that's a professional sailor. He's been in 15 years. And nobody gets ahead in the United States Navy by anything except how well you do on those tests. And so to me, as a Vietnam era veteran and a history teacher and someone that got a promotion, I believe in this society, and with my every breath, I believe that our society must go forward and people must tell the truth about it. So going back, my accomplishment at Jones High School, going to the Army and being selected for many of the things, that the first black male to teach at Winter Park High School, the first chairman of the Democratic Party, the first black elected official to the legislature. And I passed 2 constitutional amendments, one that was responsible for Mabel Butler being county commissioner. I changed the constitutional amendment. I include that hurriedly because I want people to understand, when I went to Tallahassee, Dick Batchelor was one of my heroes, Lawton Childs was one of my, Bob Graham. I am what is known in the trade as a yellow dog Democrat. I'm a yellow dog Democrat. I think I voted for 2 Republicans in my voting life, 2. And it's only in my old age that I admit that yellow dog Democrats usually don't vote, because what I associated with the Republican Party is not fiscal austerity. I associated every opposition to affirmative action. I was an E5 in the United States Army, and I had difficulty getting into OCS. I'm 87 years old, and I did 50-mile march during the Kennedy March, and I passed the OCS test, but they kept sending me back. And so I wanted to be an officer. And they told me after, say, Reddick, if you want to be an officer, you have to sign up. And I'm not going to use any profanity on this wonderful program. I'm going to say, if you had me 3 years, I wanted to go to Vietnam. I tried to jump out of airplanes, and these glasses kept me out of being airborne. What I'm trying to communicate with you, when I was in the Army, I was what you call a gung-ho troop. In other words, I was full of what I think is polite language to say vinegar and piss. I was full of it. I was locked and let it go. I was a medic, and when they say sound off like you have a pair, that meant that you had to be able to take all comers. When somebody said, what happens if a snake bites me on, and I'm not going to go to the rest of that, but I gave them a recipe for what you need to do to take care of yourself. It was risque, very, very, very overcoming. In other words, you gotta command your space, and if you can't command your space, you won't be taken care of. And so I intend to command my space. And so, as a teacher, I have energy. I'll be out of breath. That's why I probably have to call her.
That's okay.
Ambulance. But my point is that during my time of illness, I'm grateful to be alive. Colin Powell and I were born the same year. He's gone on to the great soldier in the sky, and I'm still here. So I'm grateful for the medical attention that I received. But I love being in the Army, but I wanted to be an officer. I always wanted to be something from the time I could read. And I can remember one of the questions that I asked Mrs. Brown, my fourth grade teacher. I asked Mrs. Brown, why didn't the slaves revolt? And I'm sure that Mrs. Brown, and I remember Mrs. Brown, her house was not too far. We're not too far from where black people lived during my time in this area. Mrs. Brown must have thought that I was a crazy little guy, but I'm sharing that with you to say in 1948, I played hooker to see Jackie Robinson play baseball. In 1948, I joined Mount Pleasant Missionary Baptist Church, where I still live. In 1948, I was the class president. And I'm sharing those things with you to say all that I can say to the teachers. I did not know what I had, but I had a big mouth, and I could read. Whatever I read, I could pronounce it. I didn't understand everything I read, but the mere fact that I could articulate my thoughts, and I never understood what the odds were for. And then as I grew up and in Orlando, and I was in the 9th grade when they hired the first black policeman, and they could not on Jackson and Parramore, they could not hire white people. They could not arrest white people. So I tell people that story, and I remember all the black policemen. I knew where Belita was, what now is called Lottery. In other words, when the black folk was running, it was called Bolito, and all kind of, it was a game of gambling. When the legislature takes it over, it's now a lottery. So to me, if in my life, I've seen what was Bolita and Cuba, the big house, all of those were names for the numbers, and up north they refer to it as policy. Well, when the Florida legislature decides to get into the business, all of a sudden it becomes lottery. So in my life, I do believe that America is the greatest country in the world. But it's sort of like your dress or your best frock has a fly on it or a spot on it, and some spots, and you gotta clean them up. And so the summary of my life, I'm grateful to white people and black people who did things for me, and I want to mention some of the most prominent men in my life, white males that were especially good to me. First of all, I want to mention, people don't mention the name Jim York, who was the first chief of police that had me on the promotion board. I want to talk about Ed Creech, who was the most popular teacher at Winter Park High School, and he was my rabbi out there at Winter Park High School, because the white teachers would ask my best students whether or not I enunciated, intonated, and inflected sufficiently. They wanted to know if Mr. Reddick spoke with a Negro drawl. And so the best students, that was a part of it. The other thing is, my first two student assistants were Dale Judith Zauder and Larry Kahn. So all of these years later, I never had a student assistant. I went from the worst high school in Orange County to the best high school in Orange County, and student assistants, air conditioning. In my life, I've never been in an air conditioning classroom until I got to Winter Park High School. And of course, from there, I went to Rollins and spent some years there. and from Rollins to the legislature, and ended my career at the University of Central Florida recruiting veterans to help with inner city children. And we actually had at the site where we're doing this filming, this was Grand Avenue, and we had a couple of our soldiers, veterans, that would become role models for the children. We would sometimes march them or sometimes assist with the teachers, but I wanted more today, then as now, I wanted more of our children to, in the words of Van Morrison, walk on the bright side of life. And Soldiers and Scholars, Dan Holsenbeck was another one of my heroes. He was the rabbi at the University of Central Florida, and he sponsored one of the few programs where if you went into the Army black and broke and you didn't contribute any money, you came out black and broke also, because haven't always had the same GI Bill. So a GI Bill was not an automatic supplement unless you had it. So it shortchanged a lot of our veterans. So the University of Central Florida to Dr. Holsenbeck and our president, both of whom have now deceased, they were spectacular in providing housing tuition for some veterans to set some role models. I've talked at 1,000 miles an hour, and if there's anything specific that you want me to address, please ask me whatever question you have, and I'll fire away.
I think you covered a bunch of my questions already. So I want to walk a little bit back.
Okay.
Let's talk about your father really quick, if
Okay.
you wouldn't mind. So you'd mentioned in other interviews that your father worked in insurance and hospitality and even led a strike at Morrison's cafeteria.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so how did his work ethic and activism influence your views on self-determination and leadership?
My daddy was such a striking man. He was especially handsome. He spoke the language very well, but he did have a temper. There were times when he didn't take a lot of stuff and he lost a lot of jobs. So he worked at Morrison. He headed the strike there, and some of the customers would come in and tell him they were going to shoot his kneecap or other part, and some of them gave him money. So that was a part of his activism. He also worked at the San Juan Hotel, and I'm trying to think of some of those other places where Daddy worked. He was also an insurance man. It was very slim picking during the time my father was insurance man, but my family stayed together, as I said to you. The family from the end of slavery, from the end of Reconstruction, my great-grandmother she was only 10 years old but from the end of slavery, she was, as I said, she was born in 1850. She was 10 years old, but that marriage, that is where we pick up the family name. We've done some genealogy, and we know some of the white people in the family, but the black family is intact from that marriage on maternally to this point today. But that was my father's work. My mother was a maid. She worked for some great people, and I want to answer any other questions about my daddy and tell you about one of my mother's employees. His name was Andy Nasrella. He was a home builder, and I attended college on a football scholarship, and that meant I received half the tuition, but the rest of it I had to come up. I washed dishes, I did all, but I didn't have $300 to stay in school. Mr. Nasrella advanced my mother. She was making $25 a week, and Andy Nasrella advanced my mother $300 so I could stay in school. Why do I tell? Andy Nasrella's gone, my mother's long gone, but whatever progress I have made, there were some white Caucasian people here that did something. Not everybody, there are some racists, but I want people to understand that in terms of whatever progress I made in life and in all that, there were always some people. So is that enough on Daddy?
Oh yeah, no, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Okay, so let's see. Okay, you talked a little bit about that already. All right, let's switch gears and talk a little bit more about the community when you were growing up. So tell me a little bit about what your neighborhood was like when you were growing up.
I'll be happy to. Let me tell you, let's talk about specifically the 700 block of Jackson Street. That is the western block, that's Parramore and Jackson Street, which is one block south of where the soccer stadium is. That's where I grew up. On that street, was Dr. Hankins' house, who lived at Lime and Jackson Street, one of the 4 black physicians that I remember. He had the most beautiful home, probably in the black Dr. Hankins. The house is still there at Jackson and Lime. On the corner of Lee and Jackson was Dr. Eccleston's house. So those were 2 of the premier. There are no bankers, but those were the houses. Reverend Collier, the pastor of Shiloh, which was the largest Baptist church house, was on the east side of Parramore. So that's the block in which I grew up. The rent lady that collected our rent, Miss Hopkins, was there. Next to me was the Miss Eddie Jackson, who was the wife of John H. Jackson over the recreation. So I lived next door to a teacher. I lived across the street from a teacher. There was a doctor on that corner, and there was a Miss Rogers, Dr. Wells' sister, also lived in the same block. We lived at 726 and a half West Jackson Street when we moved to Orlando. But just in the neighbors that I mentioned, there were doctors, a dentist and a doctor. There were teachers, which represented the middle class, and these fat little fingers could not pay, but Mrs. Jackson took me over to her house. She tried to teach me the piano. She tried to teach me the niceties of etiquette, and A.J. Cleckley, Bill Harrison, one of our heroes of Jones High School. Every year, Mrs. Eddie Jackson, who was the first black woman in Orange County with a degree in library science, but when she started teaching, they had no regular library job. They had a part-time library job, but she was the one. Every year, she would select one of us, one of the young black males, and give him some lessons about etiquette. And so a part of what I attributed when I did speak, I talk about being elected class president in Ms. Brown's class and being selected by Mrs. Jackson for the etiquette lessons I learned, the books that I was exposed to, and it was the upper crust of Black Orlando, and I'm the first in my family to attend college, but the exposure that I saw to the Student Body Council, the who's who of Black Orlando came through the Mrs. Jackson house and the other teacher's house. I hope that explains that.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Okay. What businesses were in the area?
Okay. The business on the corner of Lee and Jackson Street, which was my block, was I'm trying to think of Horton's grocery store. He provided credit to the orange pickers if they did not have enough money. The overwhelming industry, the orange pickers would muster there and on Parramore to get on those trucks. And so when there was no money, Horton would extend credit. And I'm sorry he took advantage of, in other words, the man is writing down how much you owe, and it's up to you to pay, and if you didn't get any more credit. So that was the store on the grocery. Malsby's Cleaner is on the corner of Parramore and Jackson Street. Frazier's Cleaner is on Parramore, close to that. Hankins Drugstore is there on South Street in Parramore, that's one block over. And my church, Mount Pleasant Missionary Baptist Church, which is located on Parramore and South Street, is that so? Those were the business, and across on the east side of Parramore, just north of Jackson Street, there was a pool room, Cliff's Pool Room, I think there was a beer garden in that building, and there was a laundromat there that I remember. The stores, Bridget's store was on Church Street, and Lime Street was one of the closed stores, and I'm trying to think. And Winn-Dixie was located at the west end of Jackson Street, between Church Street and Jackson Street. There was Winn-Dixie there. It's another store, but those were some of the stores. The small store was Horton Grocery, which was the closest. The largest store was what we call Winn-Dixie was the largest store. Sunlight Grocery was also on Parramore, across the street from Jones High School, at the corner of Washington and Parramore. And Dr. Hankins' office was there. Dr. Spate's office was on Church Street. I'm trying to think. Dr. Hankins, Dr. Spate, Dr. Wells' office, and there's one other. Dr. Skank. So it was about four. And Dr. Callahan. It's about four doctors, and I can only remember about 4 dentists. But that's basically the business community. Most of the business community is located very close to where the soccer stadium, the corner of Parramore and Church Street, within a few blocks radius were most of the businesses, the doctors, no lawyers until 51 or 52 when we got our first lawyer, but they were there, and the larger churches like Mount Pleasant, Mount Zion, Shiloh, they were larger because basically Black Orlando was a large rectangle around that area, and white people lived in this area where Grand Avenue is and north of Garland Avenue.
Okay, so you mentioned there were citrus pickers, and you mentioned there were doctors, and there were the upper class. What did the majority of people in Parramore, the area, do for work?
Most of the women were maids. Most of the men worked in citrus and construction. And that's it. Because remember, there were no. I remember no white collar jobs. Everybody that worked downtown, they were janitors or maids. Rutland's men's store had a black man named Tommy, and Tommy did something that he had something to do with clothing, but he was one of the few blacks that just wasn't a janitor. And the other thing that I would check with George Stewart hired black people early to do something other than just most menial tasks that I remember. And there were a few, not very many. I can only remember 2 or 3 postmen, which was a middle class job as far as we were concerned when I was in elementary school.
Okay. How have businesses and entrepreneurship in the area changed over time?
It's moved from Grant's Furniture Company was in there. Hankins Drugstore was there. There were a number of barber and beauty shops. That was a big industry also that I neglected. Joe's Barber Shop on Church Street was the biggest barber shop. So there were a number of very large barbers. That was a big industry. And beauty shops were more smaller operations. But a number of barbers earned their livelihood. Barbers and beauticians earned their livelihood taking care of the pressing their hair and cutting their hair. And I'm trying to think of, and there were cleaners, Wilbur Gary's wife, Woodruff Cleaners. There were Woodruff Cleaners, there were a few cleaners. I mentioned Mosby's Cleaners, Woodruff Cleaners. So other than big growth, very few, I can only think of 2 black grocery stores, and usually they did not have very much stock. And so black, during my youth, when you didn't see a lot of goods because they were limited by capital. So today in my adulthood, trying to keep young black children out of jail and out of the cemetery, I talked to them about respect for discipline and respect for themselves, and you can achieve anything. I would just mention that my best friend were the first black female to get into the University of Florida was a 1955 graduate of Jones High School. She did not graduate from Florida, but she graduated from Case Western Reserve. My best fraternal friend was David Henson. He was the president of Alabama A&M University when he died. So I'm sharing with you that my academic achievements did not equal those people in Science Square, but those were my friends. And so a part of me, the muscularity, the masculinity, and the barbaric part of my personality expressed itself on the football field, but my friends were the academics.
Okay, let's do, while you're thinking, since you were thinking a moment ago about the neighborhood, I want to give you a map, and you can choose whatever writing utensil you'd like. I want you to define what you would consider the Parramore community and define its boundaries. And you've got, this is north upward right here.
This is north, okay. All right, well, what I'm
You
going
see, we
to
took the lake names are gone, but you still got street names.
okay, well,
Whichever color
this
you
one,
like.
I think this one smells a little bit now.
Whatever you like.
So I'm going to, I want to find Garland first. Well, help me find Garland. I'm looking for, I want to find Garland, Georgia. This is Church Street. Okay. South Street, Anderson Long. Okay, Jackson. Now, this is my street here, Jackson. All right, and Lake Oakville. I am trying to lean here too far. Roslyn too far. Q too far. I'm trying to North Orange Avenue. I'm trying to find, I'm looking for Amelia, Lucerne, Atlanta, Division, that's my paper route. We picked up papers there, South Division. I'm trying to, oh yeah, no, Amelia is what I'm looking at. Delaney, Slime, where's Atlanta? Okay, let me see how many. Okay, where's okay? We're going up Church Street.
Amelia's up here.
What I'm looking for is where's Highway 50? I don't see Highway 50.
Okay. They're at the top.
Highway 50 should be north. This is Highway 50 should be this. In other words, my orientation. Highway 50. Yeah. Okay. I got it now. This would have been. I had paper customers here, but on Amelia Avenue, no go no go on Amelia. That was past my. That would be past. That was where white people lived. Excuse me one moment. Excuse me, please. So Livingston was my last street. This is Livingston here. So I'm outlining this as this was the end of my route. That's the and on the east side. I'm looking for. That's too far. I'm looking for Division Street now, which was by this, trying to find Division. I don't see Division Street, but Pine Street, Church Street, Division, Jackson Street. Where is Division Street? Well, anyway, this expressway. I'm going to. I'm trying to think where I-4 is now. Division Street. This is too far over. This was a white section over here, so I'm going to say as far as Parramore, a little further than Parramore, Parramore, but not too many blocks. Huey Street. This would be North Orange Avenue. Let me see. Huey. I'm going to mark this off. Huey Street is this. I'm marking this as my boundary somewhere along there. This was the end of my paper route. It was all white people downtown there. That's so. I'm making this. West Amelia is the end of my boundary. My hands shake a little bit, but that's the northern boundary, and this is the eastern boundary. And where I'm just outlining this was my paper right here, and all this Gore Street. This is basically where black people live, right along here. Gore, right along here. So that I'm giving you that is my boundary, and by 1950 they start moving out to Washington Shores. But this is basically I'm trying to think what would be my where's 441? What is this? 441 was, yeah, this is it right here. Is that?
Yeah.
This is I did not get, well, came pretty close to 441. So this is what you have here is basically my that's my paper route. That basically describes the area. And there were 8 of us, and I was a paper boy from 1953 till I went off to college, but that was my paper route there.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I love that. Everyone defines it a little differently, so it's very interesting to see. Okay, so thinking about the community, what challenges has the area faced?
The challenges, the policemen were racist, and there wasn't anything that you could do about it. And as I told you, in 1953 they hired the first black policeman, and I admired them very, very much, and it was a giant step forward. And so if I had to summarize whatever my progress in life, I measured by the progress that we all made. In 1953 they hired black policemen that could not arrest white people, did not hire black firemen until 1968, and I was a soldier, so I know that 16% of frontline troops in Vietnam at the height of the frontline people doing the fighting, not the people typing in the back, but the people fighting, the Vietnamese were 16% black. And when I did speak, I would talk about the irony of what does it take to become a fireman in Orlando. You can be a cannon fodder in Vietnam to protect the white folks in their value, but you can't become a fireman in Orlando in 1968. Only 2 of those firemen are alive. And so at some point, my suggestion is you ought to interview those firemen. And so when I talk about how great the country is, it's not without some hollow spots and some spots of hypocrisy, because the best football player that I can remember named Jack Power, He ended up working on the garbage truck. Well, what does it take to become a fireman? You gotta have some math skill, but it couldn't be that all the football players that we produced, none of them could become firemen. You couldn't become a fireman until 1968, and only 8 of them. So what I tried to say for the white people that were willing and equal and have made some effort to fair, I talk about them. I want to call all their names, Dick Batchelor, Pete Vogt, so many other people that I think helped move us forward that were during my time. And of course, I tried to recruit Jerry Deming when I was at Rollins College. And so to me, promise is always with us, and it isn't hidden by where you go to the bathroom or your color. If there's talent, there's talent. And if I have a message to deliver, I want everyone to be given. I don't want any unqualified pilot, doctor, engineer, dentist, or anything else. But we'll never get them there if they aren't given an opportunity. And my plea for affirmative action is don't give anybody a damn thing, but give everyone an opportunity to earn it. I was not good in chemistry, but I know about Napoleon defeated Waterloo in 1804, and I don't have to call anybody, and I'm one of the few people in our land that's been to Waterloo and know a little something about Napoleon. So for me, chemistry was periodic table of the elements was not my deal, but history was. And so for me, I'm grateful, and I want to encourage all the people of Fairmont, and that's my whole. Just let's give all of us, the poor kids and the white kids in the trailer park, give them an opportunity. The black kids that maybe daddy isn't there and mama and stuff, but let's give them an opportunity. And so I believe in education. Got another question for me?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
definitely do. So you were instrumental in saving the Wells-built hotel,
Yes.
and also for bringing FAMU Law School to Orlando.
Yes, I did.
What do you think these projects meant for the economic development in Parramore?
I don't think I got much credit for them as I should. Bill Frederick was trying to tear those things down, and I put the money, when people tell the truth about it, go and examine the Florida legislature and see that Representative Reddick put enough money in the budget for the Trust for Public Land to come and redeem. But Brenda Robinson worked for the mayor at that time. Brenda Robinson was my go-to person trying to maintain the well-built hotel. I was a paper boy from 53 to 56, and so when they would tear it down, you tore up the doctor's house across there. So why do you want to tear down everything in the black one? I'm a history major. So one of my proudest accomplishments was when the Democrats were in charge and Representative Reddick had an appropriation committee. The reason the well built is still here is because we put some money. Nobody just gifts black people with anything. And so the well built is a hotel is here. And the other reason is I was a hardcore Democrat, and when people were competing for the Florida A&M Law School, the people that were responsible, and I hope that you'll end up Mayor Hood. It was Daisy Lynham, President Humphrey, and Mayor Hood. We were the ones, and Alzo J. Reddick did some heavy lifting. In other words, when I tell you that whatever I did in Tallahassee, I worked hard, and I was, I worked hard, and I got to be one of the first black chairmen. And when I got to be an appropriation chairman, two of the things that I did under Governor Graham, Charlie Reed, and so, I know some people don't care for Alzo Reddick. I tell people when I start talking, I talk fast, but if you're gonna bet on anybody, bet on me, because I know what I'm talking about. So those were two things that I'm proudest of, and I'm disappointed that I didn't get more credit. There's nothing else that I can do in my life now, but I want black children that grew up in Parramore and the area where I live, I want them to understand that who came out of there, Esther Langston, first black female, David Henson. I want them to have what Napoleon called, he said, every French soldier has a Marshall baton in his knapsack. And I believe that, and so why I want people to know about those two attributes of Alzo Reddick. I want them to know that this was a legislator that worked hard for the people, and the only way that I can tell people that ensured that I had an opportunity is to try to give an opportunity to that next generation. And I'm mentioning again the people that gave me a job at Dove Street Country Club, Orlando Country Club, all that helped me, and Andy Nash-Rilla, who has a son, is an architect, all of them helped me secure an education.
Okay. Another thing that you did in your time in Tallahassee, you helped to shift single-member legislative
Constitutional amendment.
Yes. So,
first black to have a constitutional amendment. I changed the Constitution of the state of Florida, and I'm happy that you asked. The state of Florida restricted single-member district and two single-member, and so no black people get elected. And so it was Representative Reddick and Senator Stewart that changed the Constitution of the state of Florida. And to me, I know my time is short, but I changed the Constitution to ensure minority voters, and all of us can ask for in life is to be given a fair opportunity. And so I think that people celebrate some of the black politicians that followed me, but I want people to know, I want the children of this community, black and white, to know it was Representative Reddick that did some heavy lifting and changed that constitutional amendment and was not daunted by it.
absolutely. Okay. So you've spoken about, you mentioned a lot of people. So you mentioned Miss Eddie Jackson and your mother's employer. You talked a little bit about, are there other women in Parramore's history that you think need more recognition?
I'd like to see a statue elected to Esther Langston. The library has a picture of Miss Eddie Jackson. I want more recognition for Miss Eddie Jackson, and all of my mother's friends were maids going to white people's houses together. But sometimes they would give my mother a little money. They didn't earn very much money. I think my mother's average salary was like $25 a week. But the maids that were interested in me and wanted to know how was I doing in school and did I graduate, and I did not want to be a teacher when I first graduated. I wanted to do a PhD. I don't know whether I had all the credentials, but I wanted to do a PhD. I didn't want to be a teacher, but they were worried about whether or not I graduated. Well, I did graduate, but my point is, all of the people that helped me, all I can say is thank you, and I want to try to help their children and grandchildren. So if nobody mentioned my name, if they said it was a legislator from Orlando that changed the Constitution after Reconstruction to make it possible for black people to be elected to the county commission, you don't have to know his name. Just know it was a black legislator that took care of business and historic preservation. The people that I talk about, when I tell you going into the what would have been the bourgeoisie of Black Orlando, Mrs. Jackson and Dr. Wells' sister, who was a teacher, they took me in their home. They had pianos, they had dining rooms, they had silver, and so a part of what the introduction to a middle class life was. Wilbur Gary, the principal of Jones High School, his mother was my den mother, and so when I try to convey as rapidly as I can, as a second grader, a Cub Scout, grateful to get my Cub Scout uniform. This black lady, all these badass little boys coming to her house for our Cub Scout meeting. She helped put the polish, the propulsion in my spine. I am grateful, and she's long gone. Her son is over in Guardian Care Nursing Home, where I'm on the board of direction. So my den mother's son is in a nursing home where now I have a small role in trying to keep it alive. But to me, it's an opportunity to say thank you to the community to whom I owe so much.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you one last question.
All right.
So what do you think Parramore's legacy is?
Parramore's legacy is one of producing people that achieve. Parramore's legacy is one that, as much as I admire the president of some bank, all of the banks, Parramore suffered from a shortage of capital, and belief, and so Parramore never developed. The merchants were there. There was no capital or confidence in their ability to flourish in that greater world. And so, as a member of the legislature, I helped legislate the Black Business Investment Board. So my hope today is people with entrepreneurial talent, that they'll be given a fair opportunity to develop their talents and have their businesses flourish. And so for the ones that help and are helping, I applaud them, and I want to see more of it. I hope that answers that question.
Okay, that's great. And so is there anything that we didn't talk about? And I know we could probably talk about so many things, you know so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today that we didn't?
The only thing I want to say is, as an African American who served this country and grew up in this community, I want people to tell the truth. Tell the truth about whatever our shortcomings are, but tell the truth about the accolades too. Tell them there's nothing that Mr. Nasrallah can do, but here's a white man that loaned my mother enough money so her firstborn child could get. There were other people that did things like that, and so I want to see. I don't want to give away any money. I don't believe in deadbeats and bums. But let's help people that deserve an opportunity to flourish in our capitalistic and the greatest country in the world.
Absolutely. Well, thank you.